Okay.
All right, good evening. My name's Jacqueline Johnson, and I would like to welcome you to One Breath Rising. This evening, we're going to have Abdul Ali read and present for us. I'd like to tell you just a little bit about One Breath Rising. We started doing presentations in intimate settings, largely in Brooklyn in like 2015. One Breath Rising Inc. is a nonprofit organization committed to providing opportunities for artists from diverse cultures, inspired by the African American traditions of improvisation and storytelling, to present, collaborate, and document their work. We frequently do events once a month. And throughout this winter season, we will be doing online events. I'd like to pass the baton on to EJ Antonio.
Well, welcome everyone to One Breath Rising's second Sunday series. And today, as Jackie said, we are really pleased to have poet Abdul Ali as our feature. And I know you're really going to enjoy him. But before we start, I want to give thanks to our sponsors and you, our audience. We want to thank the Brooklyn Arts Council, Poets and Writers, Park Slope Civic Council, the 440 Gallery, the Garner Glazer Foundation, you, our individual donors, and our audience for making our programming possible. And now we are going to hear from Abdul Ali, and I'm going to give you his brief bio. And I just want to say I've known Abdul for many years, and he's always been a wonderful, wonderful poet. And his work really touches family and social issues that are relevant to us still today, even after the many years that I've known Abdul.
Mm-hmm.
Abdul Ali, poet, writer, and cultural worker, is an arts administrator who lives and works in Maryland. Mr. Ali has held distinguished teaching appointments at Johns Hopkins University, Howard University, and currently Morgan State University. He is the recipient of fellowships from the Robert Deutsch Foundation, Canem Foundation, and Sewanee. His debut collection of poems, Trouble Sleeping, won the 2014 New Issues Poetry Book Prize. When Mr. Ali isn't teaching writing, he's working with community-based arts or arts nonprofits through his consultancy. And we are so pleased to have him here today. Abdul.
Thank you, ladies. It's such a blessing to be in this space, particularly being just coming from a very big in-person space. So I love this contrast. It feels like being in the living room with friends. So I'm very appreciative for this lovely contrast and counterpoint, and especially to meet each of you and to be introduced by EJ. We met at the Hurston Wright writing workshop in the early 2000s, and we've remained friends since. And I've been such a huge admirer of her work, and now I'm getting to know her as an organizer and a curator. So this is really fabulous. Um, I'd like to open this reading by sharing a quotation from the great Toni Morrison, who, in an interview, she describes how she sees her work. She says that she regards her responsibilities as a Black writer as someone who must bear witness, someone who must record the way it used to be, and the way it ought to be, I'll leave to the sociologists. But I want to make sure that a little piece of the world that I knew doesn't get forgotten. And that just stays with me because I feel like that's kind of what I'm trying to do. Because we all, as humans, I think we experience emotions, sort of the full spectrum of emotions in different ways, but how we experience them, the particulars are different. And I think that's kind of where the fun part comes in as writers. We want to record those particulars. So I want to open with this poem called This Tiny Utopia Nestled in the Archive. What I remember most are the lawns, lines the mowers made on the deepest greenery, the sparse trees that line the neighborhood. Remember the peach tree in the backyard? The modest, semi-detached homes filled with people that looked, spoke, and drove Buicks like us? The airplanes that flew over our roof daily on their way to LaGuardia Airport? The green and white lawn chairs that made tic-tac-toe boxes on my legs? And me counting the clouds, which I mistook for fat-ass sheep? The extravagant Sunday church hats that moved like ceiling fans, the holiday parties and basement parties, the slow drag, the red bulbs replacing the white, and in general feeling like a silhouette peeling from yourself, stuck in the background, wanting to move center on the dance floor. Watch me get down. Um, so I, I wanted to start with that because I grew up in New York City, and I feel like that
Mhm.
is always going to be um, the backdrop when I close my
Mhm.
eyes. Just that Black community that I grew up in,
Mhm.
that I love, and yeah, that's my reference point. That is home. Um, yeah. And I'm so grateful to come from that community and to take it with me wherever I go. So thank you for giving me space to share that. Along those lines, so I do look at writing as kind of building our own kind of archive, right? Because our memories, it's individualized, right? So I want to read this next poem, which is called Amistad, which is written after the movie Amistad when it came out, and you'll sort of get a little bit more context about what prompted this poem. Amistad. My father and I run to each other at the edge of Lower Manhattan, World Trade Center, where there's a movie house. We tiptoe down the slope, making our way to our seats. We don't exchange pleasantries. Cinque, stolen from his native land, a body of water separates Cinque from his home. We have front row seats inside the belly of the ship. History so close it hums. The rush of water now spilling in my lap. I close my eyes, blink, water breaking through the screen, water rising from the floor. How the past revolts against the present. I lift both feet. We're in this together, our own Amistad, headed somewhere, a meeting place, captive. So my mom and I were literally, this is when the World Trade Center, before 9/11, there was a movie theater. You may remember that. And my dad was just kind of like hanging out, and we ran into him, and I guess he wanted to do something fatherly, and he said, "Hey, let's go to the movies." So we went to see Amistad, and yeah, thought that was really interesting. Um, So the name of my only book to date is called Trouble Sleeping. And during the time that I wrote this book, I did suffer from insomnia. And so part of the remedy was to write through the insomnia, right? So some of the topics that I'm addressing, I needed to kind of release, some of that energy. So this next poem is the title poem. It's called Trouble Sleeping, and it's aesthetically very different from any of the other poems in the collection. Trouble Sleeping. Sirens flash, cayenne red, waking the undead. There are fingers around my neck, never quiet, always noise, noise, unrest, disquiet, tongue cut in halves. Sometimes I think of jumping in front of a train, splat. Let them play Sam Cooke songs at my funeral. I miss the train, jump, see if I'll sprout feathers like they do in Marvel comics. I couldn't, shoulda, though. I miss my mama. It's Ramadan. My spirit's hungry. My mind backpedals to a different time. I hear different voices, slave voices. I am master and slave. The crack of a whip on my own back. Release me, Lord, from this plantation. Whisper the Lord's prayer. Watch it knock on the ceiling, on its way to heaven, coming back to carry me home unanswered. Hear the voices, listen to them hum. I hear laughing, open my cabinets, drink all of my good flavored tea. Who's that? Who's there? Speak, speak, speak. Get out of my head. How'd you get in there? How to silence madness. Got to get to sleep. Got to get to sleep. Antebellum dreams, thoughts, tying shoelaces, racing, racing, moving, crowded, plum tomatoes, sugarcane, walking in clay, white horses, hoof, 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 sirens are back, red eye, someone's been shot outside my window, someone's overdosed on chicken wings. They couldn't resist, face bloody on the concrete, my mind's on fire. There's a fire truck tossing and turning and turning and tossing. In the kitchen, the dishes undone, mice running relays in the trash can, paint peeling back, steam, heat up too high, covers smothering, sweating, earth, wind, and fire on the radio. The reasons, the reasons, the reasons that we're here, sleepwalking, rapid eye movement, REM. Dear God, can I have 1 hour, an hour of peace? Silence this violent river in my head, quiet the wrinkles, split the sea, wash the evil in me away, this restless tornado before I go way mad, before I go cross over, before morning time, wake me from this nightmare, give me a new song. Hear me hum it good this time. Body and soul. Somebody call Aretha. Say a little prayer. Say a little prayer. Sleep, sleep. All God's children need traveling shoes. Sweet peace. Sleep. Rest. My mind's been running. I'm tired. So that was Trouble Sleeping. Let's see. Oh, thank you. Um, this poem is this is for my granddad. It's called Dreaming in Plaid for Grandpa. When I dial your number, I wait for the recording to beep. Hey, Pops, where you been? Then it hits me. Every black man is you sitting on porches in plaid long sleeves. Where you been? No answer. Noise of silence, blue fog, the whiff of coconut milk, cream of wheat, your cheeks fever orange, calypso, ears tear flooded, cataracted, and your cologne a cocktail of jupe, mothballs, crushed cloves. Wow, I haven't visited some of these poems in so long, so this is a real treat to down memory lane. Um, so one of the topics that I like to explore is this idea of home. Um, and I'm going to read this poem called South Ozone Park, which is the neighborhood that I grew up in Queens, New York. And there's an epigraph from the great poet Lucille Clifton that reads, in the inner city, or like we call it, home. 1. They walk in packs, sweet talking, baby ooh and ah, can I get your phone number? Don't be that way, pretty thing. And when they give a smile, gold plates flash, ricocheting, ring to chain, gold fronts, toothy smiles, beaming from chest to chest, a pinball game until the night lights up like Times Square and the hood ain't so scary until patrol cars change the colors of the sky from black and gold to red and blue. 2. Subway cars roar overhead. Boulders hold this urban pride rock in the air. Block letters spray painted on bricks. It's summer, summertime. Fire hydrants will empty on women with wine bottle shapes wearing neon spaghetti straps. The night hums with cicadas and bats and streetwalkers. It is true that on every corner lives a superhero unafraid of bullets. 3. Storefront churches on every corner, church's chicken, the way of the cross, holy redeemer, soul rescue workers, soul food dinners after church. We walk uptown like we own it. Boomboxes, our Warcraft. It's tricky. Our theme song. Islam Brothers selling Final Call newspapers, bean pies, 2 for $5. 4. When was the last time you've been home? Anything familiar? Was the soul food joint still standing on Rockaway? And what about Paisley Park, where school children walked across the frozen lake, falling inside a mirror, becoming black icicles? Was your old house still standing? Who yanked out the pear tree? Did anyone remember the block before they built a house in the lot? Before English reversed into a dozen curry-stained tongues? Did anyone remember your name? All right. Um, and the last poem that I'll read from the book, because I would like to share some new work, is called East Elmhurst, which is the area that I lived briefly, um, like when I was very, very young. And my uncle, who lived in Paris, yeah, he's a artist, he's a photographer. When he moved back to the States, he came to stay with us, and I was so mesmerized by my uncle because he was, you know, just very different. He had long dreadlocks and he just seemed so cool. And so I wanted to write a poem for my uncle in this book, East Elmhurst, for my uncle. 1. Before I ever saw my face, you did, behind a lens inside a slab of steel, an oracle splitting seconds into clear, focused photo strips where darkness crowds light. Within seconds, our apartment became a haven for vampires. We'd shut the Venetian blinds, keeping out the light. I'd watch images appear magically on blank sheets in a pool of solution. Me on fire escape, me chasing a pigeon on fire escape, you fresh from Paris, French curled tongue, Afro bohemian, modern Van der Zee. It was a simpler time, the late 80s, pull-out couch, small kitchen, unadorned dinners, chicken with rice. Before I could write, I listened. Before I could remember, you snapped, shutter released. 2. On my 4th birthday, you took me to Coney Island, the haunted house, the goblin who stole a woman's wig, the green fires, howling, smoke, the dark dip, the untightened seatbelt. They played Thriller the whole time. Pitch black, mummified, mannequins, laughing. I heard your voice. It's going to be over soon. Hang in there. Then there was the beach, litter mixed with sand, seashells slicing big toe, the burn of fresh salt water, the limp beginning, middle, end, flash, reload. Before I learned to use that 35 millimeter, every memory was framed in a cloud, the stale popcorn, cotton candy, sweaty Coca-Cola bottles that hissed, clowns with huge hats, three-card Monty, your harmonica. 3. When my mother got arrested that summer, you rushed on an airplane to fetch me from North Carolina. I held my breath until I saw you walking down the dirt road, camera slung across your shoulder. You okay? I'm fine. That was over 25 years ago. Now we both have children, my daughter slightly older than yours, you traveling the world, taking pictures, changing diapers, photo sessions, far and in between, me traveling the world in sleep, waking up in the middle of the night, writing draft after draft after draft, hearing alarm clocks that do not exist. Your 35 millimeter now rests in my living room, covered in a film of dust. The other night I wound it up, opened the Venetian blinds, and shot a star before its light burned out. Oh, thank you. Um, how are we doing on time? We're doing okay?
We're good. We're good.
We're good? Okay. So I have to admit that I am an unapologetic jazz head. I fell in love with jazz as a little boy, listening to the radio actually, and then discovering the records in my grandparents' basement, and it just stuck with me ever since. And I have a particular affinity to Miles Davis's Kind of Blue. I listened to that album so much. So I wrote a poem about it. I felt like it deserved a poem. So this is going to be in the next manuscript. Feeling free while listening to Kind of Blue. I've memorized each lonely solo of mouth to brass, breath dragging the blues out of the cotton fields and into cafe society. Here is an education, a noble origin story. I keep swallowing my own breath, experiencing each note in reverse when the set winds down. Light fades. I hop on my toes, waving my handkerchief. Yes, yes, yes. Um, all right. A topic that I explore in this new manuscript, I talk a good deal about the body, among other things. So I'm going to read this poem. There is a scar on my body. Each morning I look for it. Maybe it's disappeared, or dare I say healed. Unlikely. I don't know. But what I remember is the dark patch that looks like a turtle shell. I used to say it was a birthmark to deflect questions. Now it seems to have submerged in some body of water beneath the skin, evading plain eyesight. What is a scar? A wound, a memory, a trauma. One yogi liked to start off each session talking about body memory, how the body is our greatest archive, that it knows things before our minds do, that it's capable of storing memories at the cellular level. I never gave it a second mind to it. I just stretch, reaching for my toes, looking for my turtle shell to move. Uh, Self-portrait. I keep rewatching Moonlight and all those iridescent blue, black bodies after dark. I'm an amateur at this. I have no license to operate this body or to handle yours with its complicated equipment. So sit still with me. Listen to the hum coming from the ocean. Bury your toes in the sand, stare into my eyes. Yes, like that. Throw your head back. Do you see the stars, black mermaids, the universe exploding? Most importantly, do you see me quivering right next to you, memorizing every shade of blue? Um, and I want to share another poem from Trouble Sleeping. As an undergraduate, we had to learn how to swim in the College of Arts and Science. It was required. And I lost a lot of friends, in the course of my studies because some folks were just horrifically afraid to swim. And they transferred to one of the other colleges in the university. So I wrote about that experience, and this poem is called Our Swim Instructor Says Black Folks Have a Fear of Water Going Back Generations. Hands fold in prayer formation over our heads, our bodies, arrows when a voice yells, trust the water, get on your back, you'll float. Each backstroke is a struggle to imagine something else, not bodies cutting the sea. I want to reach the floor, slice its velvet blue at the speed of light. The water dark where a row of bones lay quiet. I'm back in the womb, searching for an opening. Um, all right. Um, let's see. Okay. This is a different kind of poem. Um, I can't believe I'm gonna read this recorded, but okay. Fear of parenting. I'm surrounded by naked pregnant women. Their breasts hang like slinkies covering their bushes. I'm handcuffed to a king-size bed where each mother's body glows translucent like jellyfish. Each of them approaches the bed where I'm spread-eagled, pinioned. They straddle me without hands, and right before release, they hop off, belly swollen, dropping their loads, babies splayed on my chest, my wrists still shackled. I cannot quell the crying when a swarm of babies crawl toward my notebooks with lit matches. I scream again. Stop! Have mercy. The poems burn first. The notebooks I attempt to save. I throw each baby at the fire to save my books, most especially the memoir I began at 12. It's all mapped out. No mention of babies, not a single word. Um, Another obsession in the new manuscript is pastorals, really. There was just so much going on with the pandemic and oh my gosh, all of the various unrests that we witnessed as a nation, as a human species, and I tried to look for, I guess, moments of solace in nature. And so I have several pastoral poems. So I want to read a couple if I may. And if you could just let me know when I'm getting down to the last few minutes, please let me know so I don't go over time. Um, Pastoral. All is noise, the nonstop honking of fire trucks bulldozing through the traffic, angry birds outside my window at 5 a.m., neighbors who take my parking space daily. The daily calendar keeps flipping forward. This is my self-talk. Breathe in, breathe out. Things have come to this. I want to see a full orange moon close, finger its craters, see blue grass, feed, milk, and sing to the goats, go hiking in my backyard, a forest, host naming ceremonies for new births, grow wheat and brew my own beer, learn to play guitar and write lyrics, paint in long strokes and bold swaths of color. To hell with email. Let all this landscape distract me from loneliness. Oh, muse and nature's songs, make me over, a born again African. Grow my own vegetables, build a fire, dance with friends with their face painted. I want to hear God. I want to know companionship like the earth knows silkworms. This is all I want. Something wild under moonlight. Um, this is the poem that I received a lovely note from the creative writing instructor who teaches in prisons, and she teaches this poem. It's called Carl's Barbershop. The peppermint stripes spinning, the shaving cream, the crowding around the TV, the razor, the photo of Malcolm X and Dr. King, the Coca-Cola machine, the still accepts dimes, the radio playing the oldies, the trash talking, the nobody can touch Otis Redding, and that's a fact, Jack, the bullet hole, the empty chair, the fades, the rust-colored tile, the high tops, the baby photos, the pointing. That's my little girl when she was a baby. The neighborhood, everything changing. The slopes, the frohawks, the hieroglyphs, the scissors slicing the air, the fragrant coconut afro sheen that makes you choke each time. You never complain. The parts, the small rectangular handheld mirror, the vanity, the 1-2 look and vogue, the folded 20 plus 5, the handshake, the pause. Um, this is a poem that I wrote. Actually, this was the first year that I attended the Canem uh, poetry retreat. And I wanted so badly to find language to capture, some of the moments because there were so many, gosh, so many magical moments during that retreat. And so this poem is called What I Should Have Said During Opening Circle at the Kavikanam retreat.
Mm.
And yes, my tongue was rebellious last night. We were a circle of 50 poets. Keep it short and sweet. Keep it moving. Keep. I'm still healing from the shock of all this. What happens after rejection, year after year after year? I was that white sheep. I wore shame like secondhand clothing to every poetry reading, and that question, a disguised fist, are you CC? And I'd look away at my feet and say, nah, I'm just an ordinary Negro poet. But now that is all history, Black history. I'm here, sucking in new air, feeling like Du Bois on top of Niagara Falls to discuss the state of the race. Separate as the fingers on a hand, but united as a fist. May our poems be healing hands, and our tongues give us back to us. Hold your sister, hold your brother, hold your siblings. Finger a wound like that, like that. Heal. And I'll stop there.
I'm back.
And you're back.
Well, thank you. Abdul, those were just really lovely, lovely
Oh.
poems. Lovely. That last one really, yeah, that captures opening circle. That definitely captured opening circle.
Mm.
Um, we are going to open up now for a Q&A. So I'll start us off, and anybody who wants to have some questions, just jump right on in.
Oh, great.
Okay. Um, for trouble sleeping, and I highly recommend everybody get this book.
Oh, thank you. You're so
There you
sweet.
go.
While it's still in print.
While it's still in print.
Oh my Lord.
I just want to say the Cadillac, the house party, the block. Yeah, it was very reminiscent of you were in South Ozone, Queens, so and I was in Harlem, and it was it just translated right on over to the block, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting how we carry our traditions no matter where we go. We carry our traditions no matter where we go, and you could easily go from South Ozone, Queens to 122nd Street between 7th and 8th Avenue, and you fit right in.
and all the boroughs in between.
Hey, there you go. You fit right in.
Yes. Yes. We could stop in Brooklyn and all of those stops. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to know, or you mentioned that you had insomnia when you were writing these poems for trouble sleeping. Were they all written during periods of your insomnia, or most of them, or yeah?
So that's a great question. So trouble sleeping was my graduate school thesis. So they were all written sort of in the same 3 to 4 year period. So just to give you a little context, I was and still am a single parent. My daughter was much, much, much younger then, so I was juggling, raising a elementary school age child as I'm trying to figure out being an artist. And I knew that, I guess getting that graduate school degree would, I guess, open up more opportunities for me. And then there's always the thing of family drama. Um, and then of course there was I think the Troy Davis thing was really big, because I lived literally walking distance from the Supreme Court. So, you just could not escape politics, living in DC. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course being a part of a Black community of creatives, we're always talking about it. So language is always speaking. So there was a lot to keep you up at night. There was a lot to keep you up at night. And then of course, I guess my personality then, not so much now, but I guess you could say that I was both perceived as very soft-spoken and a nice guy. And so because of that, people would often take liberties that they probably shouldn't. And so there were some battles that I had in graduate school, like to be specific. I think I remember I was in charge of the literary journal. And part of that was making sure that this is weird. We're all colleagues, right? We're all graduate students, but I'm about to leave, and then there were the first and second years, and I'm making sure everyone's doing their work. And some folks were not doing their work. I mean, I think there was one graduate student who simply just like ghosted us, and yet she was getting paid, and I was having to do her work. And I was so conflicted about what to do. I'm like, do I speak up? Do I just let it slide? What do I do? And, me being very sensitive, it was messing with me, and so ultimately I did decide to speak up, and I said, listen, I got shit to do. Sorry, I got stuff to do like everybody else, and this is causing me some distress, and I've always been kind of like conflict averse. And then of course I'm at a predominantly white institution, unlike Howard, when I was at, where it felt like family, where people
Mm.
looked out for each other. And so, yeah, so there was a lot going on. There was a lot going on. And this was American University, ironically named, right? So it was a very different landscape, if you will. Very,
Well, yes, yeah, that was a different landscape than Howard.
it
Definitely
was,
different landscape.
it was, it was indeed. It was indeed.
But one thing is certain, even in adversity, we still have our creative talents to get us through.
And still we rise,
And still we rise.
and still we
And
rise,
still we rise.
and still we rise. Yeah.
The one you wrote for your uncle, the
Mhm.
photography, I want you to know, you really captured that whole photographic process.
Mm.
You
Mhm.
know, the clicking of the camera, because I have 35mm cameras.
Mhm.
So it's the clicking of the camera, the setting up of the shot, the processing of the film.
Mhm.
That when we were processing film,
Mhm.
nowadays it's like
I know.
a dying art to process film,
But there are
that
some
that
purists
was
still out
there
there.
were yeah,
There
there
are.
are some purists still out there. I'm still a big purist of black and white photography.
Yes.
Really captures the
Mm.
mood and whatever of a subject
Yes.
more
How
so
about
than
that
color.
how about that image of the camera with dust on it? I mean,
Yeah,
because
right.
it jumped to
That
another part of his life. Another,
jumped right out.
yeah,
Jumped right out. I was like,
yeah.
that's my camera.
Yeah.
That's my camera. Although my camera's in the case, but that that whole process, and then your uncle, with living in Paris and coming back and taking
Mhm.
pictures, and then him coming to get you.
Yes.
And I was like, and then when you said, "Oh, the camera's collecting dust," and I was like, "Well, what happened to the uncle? And why is the camera? Well, how did you get the camera?
Yes, yes, yes.
So what
Well,
happened to your
yeah.
uncle? And
No.
how did you get the camera?"
Well, he gave it to me as a gift,
Oh, nice.
He gave it to me as a gift, so I definitely held on to it. But I guess, rather than sort of going along, I guess poetry became my media rather than
Yes.
photography.
Better than camera. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
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 Uh, although visuality is very important to me as an aesthetic, I think it's important to me in my poetics, you know. So, it's definitely in there, in the broth, right? But I don't sort of go around sort of snapping pictures, but I am going around sort of trying to pay attention and see things, and then of course record as Morrison
Mhm.
instructed me to, right? To
Mhm.
make sure that things don't get forgotten. Yeah,
Yes, yes.
yeah.
Yeah. The photography, I don't know if you've ever taken the photography courses, but
I have.
oh, okay. But in macro photography, we're doing what Erica Hunt
Mm.
said that poets do.
Mm.
She said that, if I see if I get this right, she said that when you're writing prose, you're creating a broad landscape.
Mhm.
Mm.
But when you're doing poetry,
You're just
you're doing an
Mm.
elevator drop into a particular
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
point of a landscape.
Like
So
a
Yeah.
you're
zoom in,
seeing,
like
right,
a zoom in.
you're zooming in, and you're taking that elevator drop from the top of the World Trade Center down to the bottom, and as you're going down, you're capturing, the poet is capturing this vertical landscape
Mhm, mhm,
as opposed to the
Yeah.
horizontal creation of it.
mhm,
You're dropping down into one specific point of it,
mhm.
and you do that actually with macro photography, because you're
Mm.
looking for, you can take the picture of the rose, but when you do a macro of the rose, you see all these different facets and levels and
Yeah.
depth.
You
Mhm.
see the dewdrops.
Exactly. Yeah.
And think about the poetry sequence, how we're able
Mm.
to, it's almost like a photo essay,
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm.
Mhm.
Exactly. Because that's what I was thinking about your South Ozone poem, because it was so visual. I was just like,
Yeah.
yep, I know that corner. And I
No,
live in South Oak Park.
right, right. And I think that's so cool when folks who may not have necessarily lived on your street corner, but there are things that are familiar, right?
Right.
I think that's exciting when
Yeah.
language can do that, when we can activate language in such a way that it invites everybody in. I like
Right.
when language is open that way rather than closed.
Pose.
Yeah.
That's so true. So
Mhm,
true.
mhm.
I was intrigued. The series of body poems that you're working on.
Mm.
What was it that inspired you to start writing that series?
Well, I wanted to challenge myself to do something different. I think that, trouble sleeping, obviously there's been a lot of time elapsed since trouble sleeping came out. And so there's a lot of living that has happened, a lot of growing, as a person, a lot of reading. And I think that I've read so many great poems and me thinking about the archive, you know, I've heard so many people say this, but I think our bodies are great sources of archives, and I felt
Mm.
that I wanted to challenge myself to, explore what that means, and to not feel intimidated to do that because of my
Mhm.
gender or anything like that. Yeah, and I felt like that was just, connected to other things, because me being a single parent, I felt like there were certain conversations that I wanted to have that maybe I'm starting to see some of those conversations be had by, male poets who are parenting, but I'm in a space of giving myself permission to write the poems that I want to write without thinking about, oh well, how will this frame me on the page, or what will people think, or that kind of thing. So essentially, kind of like that Miles Davis poem, the goal is really freedom, right, on the page.
Mm.
And so what does freedom look like? And as an artist, freedom looks like
Mm.
being able to, explore. There is no forbidden territory, right?
Mm.
Mm.
There is no country I cannot enter as an artist. And so
Mm. Yeah.
that's where I am, in this
Mhm.
juncture in my creative journey. And it's exciting and scary, Yeah.
Mm.
Mm. How far along are you in the manuscript?
Well, I've got lots of pages, but the poems need polishing, and
Mhm.
so I'm doing that kind of work, and yeah, so
Mhm.
stay tuned.
I love very much how being introduced to your imagery in the first insomnia poem. I love the way that staccato, short staccato rhythm that you set up, but with images on top of each other,
Mm,
fast fire images
mm.
that's just like a collage or a montage,
Oh,
and then it just builds up
oh,
this very powerful, you know,
oh, thank you.
this layering,
Oh,
and
yeah.
yeah, and they're every what I love most about it is that every day image. Getting back to the focus of those details, those moments in your life,
Mm,
and you pinpoint them in an artistic way
mhm.
to share them with us. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that really.
Oh,
That was
thank you so much.
terrific, and
Yeah,
it is
that was
Otis Redding, Jack.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. The
I want to.
barbershop, fun
Yeah,
place.
I love that. I wanted to answer him. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the
um,
barbershop is such a fun place. Yeah.
it is. I um I wanted to ask you a little bit about I love the definition of you as a cultural worker. When
Yes.
in the
Yes.
60s we were really intent on portraying ourselves as, this is who we are. We're we're
Yes.
we're we're touching all bases because we want to, you know, make contact with as many people as possible to just
Absolutely.
let them see themselves as artists and
Yes.
creators. And
Absolutely.
I like that very much. And I want to ask you a little bit about your um, uh, consultancy, what you
Oh,
do with nonprofits and what you, the other
sure.
side of the other side of you.
Sure, sure. So, as a cultural worker, it's very important for me to be in community. And so the way
Mm,
that I've achieve that is that I don't want to, I'm very intentional about the spaces that I'm in. So right now I teach adjunct at,
mm,
a local university, and I love that, it's wonderful. I've taught at many different schools, but this one in particular, I feel like I'm reaching a lot of different kinds of students, who, they're really, um, I don't know. Like I've taught at fo places where folks are extremely privileged, and their ideas about education and knowledge is very different than folks who are just hungry and grateful to sort of co because I don't know, I look at knowledge sharing as a
mm,
two-way street, you know?
mm,
So anyway, I love being in the classroom, but I also love rolling up my sleeves and getting involved with community. And so I feel very blessed that I'm able to use my gifts as a writer
mm.
to write compelling stories on behalf of nonprofit organizations to help them get
Oh, great.
funding.
Yeah.
And so, there's obviously a good deal of research involved with writing proposals and things like that. But
Mm,
what I feel that I bring to the job is to use my powers of language to put a human dynamic, a human face to who are we really talking about, when we're talking about disparities? Who are we
mhm,
really talking about
mm,
when
mm,
we're saying that there's a need for this issue, right? And so I take it quite seriously, right? Like we think about that quote that I started off with about the responsibility of the writers to record, right? So I
mm.
try to make sure that this is not something that is done casually, So I'm making sure that my verbs are very strong, that I'm not using hackneyed language that sometimes happens in nonprofit spaces. But yeah, and so it's a privilege and a delight to know that my writing can have a utility outside of, you know, just talking to other poets, which I love to do.
Mm.
But, I love that it can have practical purposes. Not saying poetry isn't practical, but um, I just love that it can have multiple uses. I feel like
Yes, yes.
I'm doing something.
Yes, you are.
So, so yeah, so that's kind of, I don't know, it really started in the pandemic. I got this
Mhm,
idea because I knew that there was so many conversations happening around social justice, and there were lots of folks with a lot of money feeling like they needed to do something. And I remember thinking, okay, lots of money are being poured into community organizations, but if these community organizations don't have someone with good intentions to help them come up with a strategy on what to
right, right,
do,
right. Yeah.
they could be worse off when that money,
Hmm.
when the priorities
Hmm.
shift. And so
Right.
that's kind of when I started putting myself out there to say, hey, let me help you come up with an actual strategic plan that actually makes sense to you. Let me help
Mhm,
you, you know, yeah, professionalize your
mhm,
operations, that kind of thing. And I'm someone who had worked for many years in the classroom, but I took a little hiatus because I got burnt out grading
mhm,
I was teaching a lot of first year writing classes, and I kind of
mhm,
burnt out. And so I needed to recharge. And the way to recharge was to see what other uses my skill set, could go
mhm,
in. So I was very happy to know that working in community I could find a home doing that. So yeah. So
Hmm.
that's how that
Yeah.
started. And
Mm.
here I am applying to go back to graduate school so that I can talk about literature and poems, but also with a lens towards public humanities, because I'm very clear that I'm not interested in just talking about literature for the sake of talking about literature, but I do believe there's something beautiful that we can learn from our art, our writing that can apply to the community. So that's kind of the perspective that I want to approach my teaching and my creative scholarship and all of that, and continue, hopefully I can continue working with community in whatever ways that
Mm.
time will allow and opportunities will allow. So
Mm.
yeah.
Hmm. Jackie, you got any questions?
Wow.
Um, let's see. Um, who are you reading now? Who's inspiring you?
Oh, that's a great question. Right now I'm thinking I'm gonna teach a seminar on uh the blues in the spring.
Nice.
So
Mm.
yeah, so I am thinking about how to construct this course in a way that is interesting, like something that I would want to take. So I want to teach Langston Hughes's Weary Blues.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
I am thinking of, we mentioned Tayemba earlier, so Lead Belly. I really love that book, and what Tayemba achieves with that book.
Do you
And then
do you have the recordings of Langston Hughes reading his poems, Weary Brew? You
I
do
do,
have that?
I
Great.
I've
Yeah, I
heard
do
it. Yes,
too.
yes.
Yeah, it's priceless. Yeah.
It's really special, yeah. And
Yeah.
then Kevin Young too. I do see a through line in his body of
Mhm.
work and his returning to the blues. So I'm gonna probably teach one of his collections, and then of
Mhm.
course incorporating some of the actual blues practitioners, singers, right? And so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
our students can kind of get an understanding of the history,
Mhm.
the musicians,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
and I'm thinking maybe we might watch a film. Um,
Mhm.
Maybe I might ask them to do a playlist or something like that.
Mhm.
Like, so we're gonna have fun,
Good, good.
you know.
Uh,
But I'm always trying to read. I even started my own virtual poetry book club because
mm,
I know that there's tons of people who, myself included, who want to join or start writing groups. And those for me can be hit or miss because ultimately I think the responsibility of me writing is my own, you know? But I
mhm,
love being in community,
mhm,
but I think talking about books may be a better
mhm,
fit than, you know what I mean?
mhm,
I'll always be open to exchange poems with people
mhm,
or manuscripts with people, but so we there's a book called Everywhere Alien by gosh, I'm forgetting the brother's name, but it was really
Brad Walworn.
yes, thank you.
mhm,
Brad Wallwood, yes. The way he captured the New York that I grew up in, the Giuliani
mhm,
era, all
Mhm.
the underground art scenes, what he did on the syntactical level. I mean, it was just such a, like, it was really, really a special read. And then we invited him to come in like the last moments of our discussion, and he read some poems and we asked questions, and he later sent me a note about how it was such a special experience for him because he never had that salon kind of experience since the book came out. And so I'm really excited about our next selection. I think we're rotating, each member of the group, they get to select a book and they get to lead the discussion. And I think the next selection just won the National Book Award from a Palestinian American poet. So I'm really excited about that. And I believe the author will join us. So if you all might be interested, I'm happy to invite you all. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Really
Mm.
nice. That was something I had been thinking about, ways of engaging poetry and keeping it alive
Mm-hmm.
in a dynamic way, in a way to get folks to buy the books.
Yes, yes.
Uh,
Buy the book and let's distill it. What does it mean, to us? Let's talk about it, right?
mhm.
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 Good project.
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent. Well, we are coming to, yeah, we're coming at the end of our time. And I want to thank Abdul Ali for gracing us this afternoon with his work, his new work, and his work from Trouble Sleeping.
Yeah.
Get the book while it's still in print, people. Um, and we hope that you have enjoyed your afternoon with us. And we
Absolutely.
want to let you know that coming up next month, we're going to have featured poet. It will be Carolyn Joyner.
Oh, yes. I can't wait to come.
And in February, we are going to have Cornelius Eady.
Oh, right. Yes. Do you have a
So,
listserv? Can you keep me on your listserv? Because
oh yes,
I'll show up.
yes.
Yeah.
So please come and join us in January and February.
Yes.
And in March, actually, we're going to have Lauren Alain, who
yeah.
from the
Furious
current
Flower.
director of Furious Flower Poetry Center at James Madison University. She'll be our featured reader in March. And in April, yours truly, EJ Antonio, will be with J.D. Perrin, Christopher Dean Sullivan, Michael Wimberly, and Michael T.A. Thompson. We will be doing a live event at the Soapbox Gallery in Brooklyn. So hopefully for those of you who are in the New York area, that you'll be able to come out and join us in April for our live event.
Yes, yes, and yes.
Well, our next 3 events for January, February, and March will be right here on Zoom. And so please come and join us and spread the word that we are out here, doing this community-based work.
And your live stream and your event, EJ, will be live streamed as well.
Yes, my event will also be live streamed. We are very blessed that the venue that we have, it does an excellent job of live streaming. And so if you're not in the New York area, but you can still watch the event. So
right. EJ, on my wish list, I want us to read poems with some jazz musicians. I think that'll be so cool.
well, that's what I'm going to be doing in April.
I know, but not with me. So we have to.
But not with you. That's true.
We have to figure out how to do this. I still listen. You're on my in my iTunes, so when I have it on random, occasionally you will be in the car with me, and I hear you reading your poems with music. I'm like, oh, there's EJ. It's very, very special. Very special.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can work. We'll try and work on that. See what we can work out.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
I want everybody to continue to have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yes.
And to, like I said, come and join us next month in February and March and April. We are full. We have really wonderful programming.
Yes, you do. And
going forward into 2025. So please come and join us. And thank you again, Abdul.
Yes. Thank you.
That's a wrap for us for today.
Yes, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed myself and the great questions and lovely energy. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.